his first day as principal, expelled 300 students from the school, and everyone was shocked. Those who were expelled protested, but he was extremely calm. Let the new security captain kick them all out. Caught a student smoking, he said nothing. Directly punish him to jump from the 4th floor. The little fatty who made the mistake was directly stared silly, not only for students. He was equally heartless towards his teachers. As long as you don't follow his rules, regardless of the time and occasion, you will definitely be scolded. But such a ruthless and authoritarian principal. But shortly after taking office, let all teachers be willing to follow him. Let all students go against the law, and spare no effort to support him, because on him, it has a powerful charm that ordinary people do not have. Unlike other teachers, at a young age, Joe is in the field of education, shows extraordinary talent. At the Brandon School where he taught, no student would desert in his class, but good people are always so out of place. Stubborn personality and short temper let Joe repeatedly offend other colleagues. Finally one day, he learned from his only friend, Frank. Other teachers joined school board, ready to kick him out of school. Joe stormed into the meeting room, stand on the table and ask them to blame, but the dust has already settled. Joe didn't say a word, attached the root of all evil to the other person's forehead, left school without looking back. Due to the greed and corruption of the school board, teachers with clean sleeves like Joe were kicked out one after another. This led to the crooked culture at Brandon High School. It's starting to ebb and flow, gradually a campus that should be filled with laughter, but it became the cradle of hell full of sin. The annual mayoral election is about to begin. Brandon School with very low progression rates, becoming the biggest stumbling block to the mayor's re-election. If this year's basic skills test cannot reach 75%, it's not just elections that are affected, even schools will be taken over by the government. The mayor's old face will be completely disgraced, but now he wants to pass the buck. Joe's best friend, Frank, now he has been mixed into the top of the Education Bureau. Facing the shameless mayor, he still patiently gives advice. Want to change the current situation? Only one person can do it. From Frank's expression, the mayor has already guessed who this person is, but for their own future. In the end, the principal agreed to Fran G's suggestion. After many years, when Joe walks into Brandon again, this place is no longer what it looked like in memory. Endless depravity has taken root. Everything that was different made Joe very sad. If you want to change this place, you will have to go through the pain of nirvana. The smooth-tongued principal Yuan welcomed to Joe's arrival, and pretentious report on his upcoming work schedule, and Joe showed no mercy. Then he made a drastic personnel adjustment. Hard-working cleaner, he promoted me to head of logistics. Unworldly assistant promoted to football coach. He also hired new strong bodyguards as the head of security. And finally, he solemnly swore his sovereignty. Joe's iron wrist make all teachers more stressed. No one dared to object to it. After the meeting, Joe came to the auditorium non-stop. All students who use drugs and commit bullying all gathered on stage, but they were oblivious to the imminent danger. Still going my own way, doing something against school rules. Joe didn't even blink. They were all expelled with a wave of their hand. Joe's decisive killing won the roar of applause from the audience. However, he cautioned the students in the audience not to be too happy. If they don't behave well, it will be their turn next. And then, Joe only used one paragraph. Let this group, children in the slums, rediscover themselves, but admonished them. There's a practical exam in 2 weeks, and a basic skills test after 100 days. It's not just about getting grades on the test. And here's the thing, if you cannot master these basic skills, can't survive in this society. And for them in the East End, waiting for them, only by falling into the abyss of crime and death. Of course, 300 students were expelled at once. Not only is it a precedent in the history of education, and it got even worse. Students face pressure from more than 300 families. The expelled family representative accused George of being a fascist, brutally ruined the futures of more than 300 families. Some of them are smart kids, deserves a chance to change. What's more, he is black. You can't make it difficult for black people. However, Joe explained clearly, as the saying goes, a mouse poop spoils a pot of porridge. Not to mention 300 rat droppings. He admitted that he was indeed waging war, but the difference is, it's a war to save 2,700 children. After that, Joe went straight away. As for whether it is applause or abuse behind, he didn't care. Certainly, his tough style is destined to make enemies. The little fat man who was fired today found Joe, hoped to get a chance to change. Joe didn't say a word. Take him to the rooftop. Let him jump down to show his resolve. That's all. Joe succeeds in saving a soul that is about to fall. Joe sent a few naughty students to sing the school song this day, and they can't even hum a music note. A teacher just lowered his head to pick up waste paper, but he was scolded by Joe involuntarily. While singing the school song, no one is allowed to make small movements, and so he was punished in the same way as the students. Joe requires them to learn the school song within 3 days, and so did all the other students. If he finds out there are still people who can't sing, he faces suspension. Turning around, Joe immediately found the music teacher. I hope he can teach the school song verbatim to the children, but the teacher was adamant. Practicing Mozart is more important than school songs, and he's had enough of Joe's authoritarian education. Joe solemnly warned him of the importance of the school song. It must be in front of all songs, and Joe canceled him because of that. Just blame students who fail preparing for a half-month chorus, but the music teacher thinks he's a self-righteous scumbag. The teacher who picks up waste paper also comes to Joe for theory. Think he shouldn't refute himself in front of students. Besides, he doesn't think he's at fault. So many days, all the teachers are busy circling him. He is not grateful. Instead, they keep denying them. The vice principal heard the sound and came. He also cautioned Joe, if this goes on, it will definitely cause big trouble, and no one can understand his behavior. But Joe remained steadfast. But it turns out Joe was right. The school began to be organized under his leadership. Although the grades have not improved for the time being, but at least they have the appearance of a student. An expelled student sneaks into the school, beating up another student with whom he had a grudge. Joe confronted the student desperately. It only took 2 strokes to subdue the student. His heroic act made the people present feel convinced. This incident made Joe realize it's just to quell internal troubles, doesn't solve the underlying problem. Therefore, he decided to keep the school gates locked during class, to ward off external worries. And this decision, it also completely got Joe into a big trouble. The expelled parents' representative cited fire safety concerns. Start looking for Joe. Trouble. And Frank discouraged him from acting so recklessly. His actions have violated fire laws. If it goes on like this, it will give those who want to take advantage of it. However, Frank's persuasion disappointed Joe. Sure enough, the fire department cordoned off the school the next day. Suspended Darnell brushes aside the past. Be the first to hit the front. The clown needs a baseball bat to protect him. The fire department can only escape in dismay. In fact, JoJo is not as cold as she seems. Ruthless. Joe caught a bunch of kids skipping class in the toilet. He took the opportunity to check the school song set a few days ago. If you can't sing, the new account and the old account are counted together. However, these back row heroes, but it brought him a big accident, and they were taught by people who used to be music assistants. Today's music teacher, Chow, stormed into the music classroom with a group of people angrily. He confronted the teacher. Why did you change the school song to this ghost? He replied, it's because the students think the school song is too boring. However, he did not ask Joe's permission. So many days, this is the only thing that excites Joe. The mood at the moment has become very comfortable. He changed his previous severity. Just say hello. And that was very flattering to all the teachers. I even suspect that he is going to do something wrong. However, I was happy for a few minutes. And Joe got the transcripts from last year's skills test. The pass rate is only a terrible 33%. He immediately gathered all the teachers on the basketball court. But a teacher chose to be late at this time, and he immediately typified him. It is this inefficiency and apathy that is destroying this school. He ordered the vice chancellor. From now on, the school has free makeup lessons every Saturday. You have to create student associations, parents who love to learn. You can also accompany your child to class. He believes that the only way to achieve success is that everybody has to be involved. Student failed. It's never the student's fault alone. It's the people around him who are responsible, especially teachers and parents. He had some of the teachers put their hands up as if they'd made a mistake. That's the 70% who fail. The humiliation to be suffered can never solve the fundamental problem. What they need to reflect on is, when students encounter difficulties, how many people are willing to sacrifice their personal time to help them out of trouble, to give them extra help? If you just blame and insult them, these students will one day. I will also walk into society in this posture. The difference is, they are being held at gunpoint. Joe's words, the heart of every teacher so far. They start to reflect seriously. How can we really put ourselves in the shoes of our students? Classroom is boring. They change the way they teach. Make every lesson lively and interesting, and the effect is remarkable. The students are making great progress. After a period of time, you can even answer questions in class. In order for them to make better progress, the school even grasps a major human weakness. Men and women, not tired of work. And it's not just the books that matter. Only with a strong physique can we achieve better all-round development. Joe leads the way. We'll play sports with students in their free time. However, after a deeper understanding, the students all discovered Joe's cute side. However, the troublemaker on the other side, racking their brains trying to figure out a way to remove Yora from power. Parents even joined forces with the fire chief to convince the mayor. If there is a security problem with the school's locked gates, then the same will happen to him. The path to promotion poses a threat, despite Frank's repeated explanations. This is done to keep drug dealers and gangsters out. But in comparison, the mayor and the fire chief are more concerned. It's your own future. Parent representatives use their relationship with the school board, and more than 300 votes behind him threatened the principal. After careful consideration, the principal still decided to safeguard his own interests. Frank informed Joe of the bad news. Chow Lima called an emergency meeting, discuss how to deal with the troublemaker. However, after the meeting ended, the vice principal wants to brief Joe on some work, but the embattled Joe didn't appreciate it. Blame him instead. Some things should be solved independently. Such inhumanity makes the vice principal unbearable. He caught up with Joe again, says he's had enough of his authoritarianism, and offered to leave. Joe is still as cold-eyed as ever, but this time he met his opponent. The first time I was scolded, I was speechless. Maybe he really should be a little softer. An hour before the exam, Joe held a pep rally in the auditorium. Before playing, he didn't forget to hand over the transfer letter to the vice principal. What a weird old man, Joe confesses on stage. In fact, he has already taken everyone here. Treat them as family. Make Braden High School your home. From the moment he arrived here, decided to stand with these kids and teachers through thick and thin, shared weal and woe, and their fate. It has long been firmly tied together, but he didn't understand these truths until yesterday, and it was thanks to the help of a good friend. These kids were never really guided, never really knew myself, until I met Joe. They seem to have truly found their lives. their lives. It's about to be like this brand new school song, Nirvana Rebirth. The exam officially begins. However, the fire chief took advantage of the opportunity to pay off a security guard. Learn Joe's plan from the walkie-talkie. Since the chain was not opened in time, Joe was eventually arrested for breaking fire laws. The students at the end of the exam just saw the scene, and Joe taught them, if you break the law, you should pay for it. They just watched, and Joe gets into a police car. Frank is very sorry about that. On his own, it's really hard to resist powerful forces, but what Joe did for the school, it can be called a miracle. However, Joe also had a few rare days of rest, but on this day he vaguely heard outside the prison, gradually clear noise. Joe looked out the window, but he saw a scene that moved him incomparably. Students surrounded the city government. Even if the entire police station is dispatched, can't stop the chaos. The mayor's school board is also messed up. Most of the parents didn't want Joe fired. Things are getting harder and harder to control. The mayor can only personally invite Joe to come forward to solve it. However, Joe crossed his legs and remained unmoved. The mayor can only talk to him, know the pros and cons of things. If these kids do something out of line, then it's not someone else who gets hurt in the end. It was them. Parents' representatives tried to control the situation, but these kids never gave him a chance to speak. A student rushed up. It means that everything is handed over to him, and he said something amazing, although given the opportunity to speak. But then, he will be killed by this group of well-reasoned children, forced to pieces. However, all this was also seen by Joe behind the door. Seeing that the scene is about to get out of control, Xiao Wanwan walked out the door. He was greeted by thunderous applause, but even Joe started to persuade everyone. They remained unmoved. Unless you see Joe released in person, students are getting more and more emotional. Police approval. Prepare for compulsory measures. Critical moment. The vice-chancellor hurried through the crowd. He handed an envelope to Joe. However, inside is the key to freedom for Eastside High School. This means they created the Miracle Bridge, made great contributions to the education cause of the Eastern District, and the mayor kept his black gauze hat. Only those who complain are in pain. Self-pity expelled students and their parents. It's a true story. The prototype of the story is named Joe Clark. He was at Patterson High School in New Jersey in the 1980s. In a controversial manner, transformed the school completely, from a living hell of drug violence to a vibrant institution of higher learning. It took Joe only 3 years. In the beginning, what he did was called crazy. Joe's family was also implicated as a result, but Joe remained unmoved. It took 3 years to create a miracle, and people's word of mouth has gradually begun to reverse the polarity. A year before the film was released, Joe Clark was on the cover of Time magazine, and in the same year, received a job offer from the White House, but he rejected this incredible wealth. Instead, he chose to devote himself to juvenile detention, continue to purify those children who are contaminated with filth. Until December 29, 2020, after years of battling the disease, Joe finally left this world, died at the age of 82. Titled, The Iron Principle. What I want to express is not the word iron fist, it's about principle. Compared to the title, literal translation depends on me. This is the true meaning of this film. An iron fist is just a way of doing things. Learning to be strong is not difficult, even in the real education system. There are educators and leaders who are good at making things happen, but here's what we need to understand. Behind the iron fist, what is the true intention and original intention? I don't think that's a headstrong dictatorship. It's not dehumanizing oppression. It is not a means to satisfy superiority and power. It's a powerful barrier. A pair of righteous hands that truly resist sin and darkness. A pair of steel arms to protect the weak and maintain the light. And Joe's always holding up his horn, waving a bat in one hand, and so is he in reality. But he was very serious about explaining to the media. The trumpet is to drink away evil in time. Bats are not weapons. It's about choice. It's like a baseball game. If you can't handle the bat, you strike out. But if used properly, you can play a perfect full-force fight. Joe wants to tell every student this. Life is always in your own hands. Which path to take is entirely your own choice. Education comes in many forms. Joe's iron fist education. Perhaps it is no longer suitable for modern society, but his sincere and passionate original intention, it will never go out of style, and always what students really need. Here is a tribute to the hardworking educators. The explanation is only a few words. The wonders of the story deserve your deep understanding.